Hello and welcome to today's dispatch from 7th Circle Politics. Today's topic is going to be the sinking of the Black Sea Fleet cruiser Moskva. The Moskva is classed as an anti-ship guided missile cruiser. It's exactly the ship that's shown on the screen at the moment. This obviously being prior to the events. The ship itself measures approximately 11,490 tons when fully loaded, a length of 186.4 meters long. It has a beam of 20.8 meters, draft of 8.4 meters, and 6 of the AK-630M close-in weapons system. It does carry other weapons, but the primary ones that we're going to be concerned about today are the AK-630M. The AK-630M is not that. That's actually a Dalek. Although I think that when you see the actual weapon that you'll agree that there's not a whole heck of a lot of difference between the two. There are obvious visual similarities. And the AK-630M is one of the oldest close-in weapons systems currently fielded by any navy on the planet. It dates back to the mid-80s. The fire control system for the AK-630 is not entirely automated, unlike the US goalkeeper system. It does still depend on an individual actively monitoring the radar and informing the system of, okay, this is a threat and please eliminate the threat. Now, what the Ukrainians claim is that the cruiser Moskva was attacked by a missile called the R-360. Based on comparative analysis, the R-630 is very similar and probably based on the KH-35 airframe, the two having very similar visual appearances. That could just mean that the outer shell has been reused, but the internals and the electrics and etc. are substantially different. The mass of the explosive warhead is somewhere between 150 and 201 kilograms, based on comparative analysis between the very different versions of the KH-35 and versions of the AGM-84 Harpoon, on which the R-3630 is considered to be based. The probability of hit for the R-360 is estimated to be somewhere between 85 and 95% guaranteed hit. So essentially, yes, it will hit. Another interesting bit of data that we found is that the detection range of the R-3630 is somewhere between 0.97, or nearest makes no difference, 1 kilometer, and 5.5 kilometers, depending on the system that's being used, whether it's visual detection or radar. And then, of course, it differs on whether the missile is heading straight for the target, and you've got the radar has a head-on picture, a side-on picture, or a tail-on picture. The point of all that is to say that for a missile that is subsonic with maximum velocity of 760 or so miles per hour, with that detection range, it should have been stopped relatively quickly. And that's also a reason why we include in today's dispatch the information about the AK-630M being not entirely automated, that might have played a role in how the cruiser Moskva was hit by these R-3630 missiles, which to all intents and purposes should have been very easily eliminated by the close-in weapons system or the standoff air-to-air guided missiles of the Moskva. It is entirely possible that at the time of the attack, the Moskva was at what in the armed forces is sometimes called ops normal or steady state ops, and they were not necessarily alert to any potential threats. Now, another piece of information has come out, and we've been analyzing here, is the weather forecast for April the 13th. The closest city to where the attack took place is Odessa, and for approximately that date, throughout the day, the temperature ranged around 40 to 50 degrees Fahrenheit. The rain forecast was a light drizzle, although now this the last two bits of data here are significant. The weather was heavily overcast, approximately 52% or thereabouts, and a relatively high wind speed of 11.6 miles per hour. For any of you other aviators out there, that is above what would typically be allowed for a general aviation aircraft to take off. Certainly it was for any sort of glider that's outside the operating envelope. Now, moving on, there have been in the past couple of days a couple of photographs and some video footage of the damage that was dealt to the cruiser Moskva. After analyzing these images, what we find are a couple of very interesting results. The four of these are shown below. Around the stern of the ship, we're going to start there, there's some significant scorch marks around what is the mounting for the anti-air missile system. There appears to be also just below where the name of the ship would be a possible hull breach. Just looking at the imagery and where the ship appears to be settling from and where the plimsoll line on the side of the ship is, there does appear to be some sort of break in the side of the ship there. Further forward of that, near the funnels, there appear to be two fires near what is presumed to be the ship's boat. What the cause of these is or may or may not be cannot be necessarily determined, though it does look like the ship's boat, as shown in the image here, is significantly worse for wear. Below that and a little bit forward, there appears to be another hull breach, and that's another interesting point to bring up, and we'll get to why that is a little bit later. Forward of that, there doesn't appear to be anything else significant, any other damage significant. The smoke is obscuring the bow of the ship. Notably, though, the smoke emanating from the vessel comes in two shades, a sort of dark gray and a light white, possibly indicating what's burning or what is not. Generally speaking, cellulose wood products are going to burn a bit more of a white, and fuels and oils and things like that are going to burn more black. There are some other scorch marks on the vessel, but those appear to be surface scorching and not particularly significant to the overall fate of the vessel. It could be that those were the result of something else that occurred, or the result some other event that is not necessarily connected directly to what caused the sinking of the vessel. Moving on, what we're going to show here are two images that support the conclusion that the vessel was attacked by a missile. What we have here is an image from the Falklands campaign of the 1980s of the frigate HMS Sheffield. Near the stern of the vessel, very similarly to the Moskva, right near the flight deck for the helicopter, there's definitely a hull breach there. Again, it hasn't been, not to belabor the point, but it is very similar to this location of the other possible hull breach on the Moskva, indicating that that could have been an aim point for the missile. We do see some significant burning and scorching on the vessel, roughly amidships, and again near that near the hull breach. Moving on, though, we include this image because this is an image of a test ship that was fired at by the AGM-84, the Harpoon missile, a US missile, but this missile, of course, has been mentioned as a possible inspiration for the Ukrainian R-360, also known as Neptune. What's significant about this image, again, is the aim point of the missile. It's very, very much amidships, similarly to the Moskva. It also appears to show a missile that the impact went almost through the ship lengthwise. And, of course, not having any images of the starboard side of the ship, it's fair to conclude that there was some significant damage on the starboard side. All that has currently been released or leaked is the port side, that being the left side of the vessel. However, the images do show a very marked similarity between what is seen on the Moskva in these two test vessels and, of course, the HMS Sheffield. So, after all that, what we can conclude most likely is that the cruiser Moskva was attacked by some sort of anti-ship missile. What exactly caused this missile, which other commentators and other experts have concluded should not have been able to strike the Moskva, is not necessarily clear, although it does seem that it's entirely possible, if not plausible, that the Russian armed forces' difficulties in regards to training and such carry over not only from the Army to the Air Force and to the Navy as well, that perhaps the radar operators or the weapons systems officers were not as alert as they should have been. Either way, the endpoint is moot when it comes down to it, because the Moskva is sitting at the bottom of Sevastopol harbor. And it does represent a significant blow to Russian military prestige in the region and around the world. And that's all for today's dispatch from 7th Circle Politics. Thanks very much for tuning in, and we hope to have another video out very quickly. Thanks very much, and stay safe and have a good day.